speaking about live streaming. Live streaming, of course, comes in a number of different formats. There's the FaceTime format, where a host will interact with one or more audience members, doing all sorts of different things, rich content activity, which can include things like cooking, eating, dancing, playing video games, and more recently, selling things. So it's important to remember in the local context that live streaming has long been a internet habit. So as early as 2016, 46% of reported, surveyed Chinese internet users said that they watch live stream in some form. And it's only in the last couple of years that this has been incorporated with e-commerce. And now it stands at around 12 to 14% of total e-commerce sales, depending on whose numbers you look at. To talk about this phenomenon, I'm joined by two different types of guests. Right next to me here is Maggie Fu, who is the talent and the executive direction behind Melanin Fu. She's an online influencer that specializes in makeup tutorial videos. And Maggie has been recognized as one of Weibo's most influential cosmetics influencers. She also has a very, very strong presence on Bilibili. And then further to my right, we have Pablo Moron, who is the Digital Luxury Group's managing director in the Shanghai office, and he's also a partner of the Digital Luxury Group, who have presences in New York, Geneva, and Shanghai. The Digital Luxury Group help luxury and lifestyle brands with their digital presence in China, whether it's social media, whether it's e-commerce, or whether it's CRM. And Pablo works with brands like Rosewood, Four Seasons, Alexander Wang, and Balmain to sharpen up their digital game. And so without further ado, let's talk a little bit about live streaming. Maggie, I'll start with you as the talent. What sort of skills are needed for a live streamer? What sort of skills must a live streamer possess?
For the live streamer, first skill I think will be you love to talking. You have to love to talk to audience. You have to talk to them like just cannot stop, and you have a really strong personality, and you're not afraid of sharing, and you have to prepare every second. You cannot just got in the live streaming and just doing nothing, because the game is not like this anymore. But if you just want, I also saw some live streaming, they're just walking around in Tokyo on the street, and they're really, really popular in YouTube, like super popular. So I think we find a way you want to do live streaming and also put the scale you actually want to put on in this audience. But I think the number one thing is you have the connection, and you have to know what you have to do, and you need to continue doing that like 8 hours, 7 hours if you want to do long live streaming.
Wow, so you need to be able to talk, and you need to have the stamina to be able to go through a live streaming session for multiple hours. Pablo, I'm curious, you work with luxury brands, and luxury brands in China, they have this tag as being somewhat a little bit conservative when it comes to digital. What do they think of this sort of celebrity, this sort of talent?
I think that we're living in a day right now when it comes to how luxury brands are embracing digital in China, where they need to accept to somehow lose control on part of the communications that are articulated. Live streaming is the perfect example, where it's going to be hosted by someone that is different than you, that the codes according to which that performance is going to be delivered is different than what as a brand new would stage. But that goes beyond live streaming, because ultimately the market in China has been for a while now about that willingness from brands to somehow lose control, working with Tmall rather than hosting your own e-commerce. Working with influencers, live streamers that are having a major influence on the type of communications that are being made. And so I think that that's one of the key tension it creates, which is also obviously synonym of opportunities. It allows to develop different type of talking points in another way. It allows to develop somehow maybe more authenticity. And I think that just to build on what Maggie was sharing, I think that there's another thing that is key when it comes to a live streamer, besides the pure skills required to deliver the right performance. It's also an attribute which is an element of credibility. Because, and I'm sure that we'll elaborate on that later, but one of the key recipe of successful live streaming, if we talk about sales-driven live streaming, is the fact that that raw format delivers something that somehow appears as more trustworthy than highly staged and polished and somehow artificial communication. But there is an element to that as well, that the audience trusts the person they're watching and the person they're listening to. And this is not what I would call a skill, but definitely an attribute that will be important for the live streamer, that ability to build a trusted relationship somehow with the audience.
Understood. And so Maggie, when brands look to partner with you, what's their brief? What do they typically give you as their requirements, or what do you think that they're looking for when they're out in the market for an influencer talent?
I think it would be a different influencer. Different influencer, they represent different part of the sale. For part of me, brand will want me to promote their brand for the younger generation. Because my audience is very young, so for example, if they know about some like older brand, they don't really understand why they want to spend money on and why I want to buy the older brand, not new young brand. So I will talk to brand, like pick up like what's the history about what's the product, what's the fascinating, and especially I would talk to brand on what's the new trend and what's we can fit in and what can slide into the audience. So that would be they're looking for work with me though.
Okay. And Pablo, from a marketing perspective, how are you communicating with clients about this type of streaming talent? What are they? Are they a sales channel? Are they a form of communications? Are they an extension of brand ambassadors? What sort of language are you using to be able to describe this phenomenon to brands overseas who might not be so familiar with it?
I think that we've observed that on many occasions. Every time there is a new phenomenon, as you rightfully called it, brands naturally and the industry naturally tends to oversimplify those things and try to apply a cookie cutter approach, where like I'm gonna do, like back then when I was doing social media, the pure goal was vanity metrics. Give me big numbers, give me impressions, give me fan base, I'll be happy. And eventually we start to look more into meaningful engagement, into classifying that audience, segmenting it. Live streaming is somehow a little bit the same. It started at first as, oh great, we got a new ways to sell. And suddenly you got people that are like, is live streaming helping me to sell? Well, yeah, if you do the right one, it could be. But there are a variety of things that could be achieved with live streaming. And I think that this is where, when you introduced it at first, we're talking about different formats, we're talking about different channels. And accordingly, the starting point is to be very clear on what we're trying to achieve. Right. You have live streaming that are not actually designed for a sales purpose, in my perception. When Louis Vuitton staged the amazing show that we all heard about by the river a few weeks ago and streams it, this is not a sales-driven live streaming. And accordingly, the way you're going to build your strategy around it is not the same that if it's a sales associate that is going to stream to a close audience of existing clients to generate impulse buying and selling them a new product. So this is something that takes time, because the industry matures with other channels developing specific approach and all having strengths and weaknesses. But also it requires brand and marketers in general to build the right understanding and framework around it, to tackle it the right way and to come with the right brief. So I could hardly tell you what the typical brief looks like, because thank God we're at a stage now where the brief can be massively different from one operation to the other.
Right. And this year, I think some of the brands have been forced into this situation, kicking and screaming. So for instance, the Shanghai Fashion Show, the Shanghai Fashion Week was live streamed in order to ensure the safety of both viewers and also the models on the runway. We had Watches and Wonders this year that couldn't be held in person, and so they had a live streamed event. What are some of the things that a good live stream of an event must have? What sort of notes does it need to hit?
If we're talking about live streaming an event, because the cases that you mentioned really is still experiences that were at a starting point designed as physical experience. And I think that this is where, and I'm not in the event industry, but the way I look at it is that the paradigm is changing, and brands are not going anymore to invest in events that are solely built to deliver an amazing offline experience. And typically in the luxury industry, you still have a lot of very closed, exclusive, private events that can deliver a fantastic experience to a small group of 20 to 50 ultra VIPs. But that represents a significant challenge if suddenly you end up having to develop a live streaming component on top of that.
Yeah.
So I think that now every time brands are going to approach those type of events, the objective is always going to be twofold. How do I deliver to the level of expectation of my physical guest? But how do I produce that show or that experience in a way that live streaming will also be an asset to expand its reach?
Understood. And Maggie, we talked just before the event, about how deep you go with some of your research on what users want. So Maggie looks at the comments that she receives, makes some notes, and also adjusts her delivery or how she showcases particular products based on that feedback. To you, what makes a good live stream, or what separates a good live streamer from an okay live streamer?
I think good live streamer have three things I think would be, to me, think if they're a good live streamer. First thing is they actually understand what audience want. They don't want to forcing you to do the launch something, unbox something. They listen and they give you the way you want. That's the one thing. Second thing, they made this all live streaming shopping experience is really interesting. That's everyone telling me why you want to watch Austin Lee so much hour, because they say it's fun to watching, it's not only shopping. And three, it's definitely really, really nice discount. I work with brand too, I always want get more benefit for my fans. Can you give me more stuff, or can you give me more discounts I can share with my fans? Because I want my fans got great benefit. And that would be the live streamer for both sides.
Okay.
Because if I really care about my fans, I really care about my brand, and brand really want to work with the influencer like this.
And in terms of those sales-focused live streamers, I mean, the extent to which that Weya and Litazzi have become superstars in their own right is something which is quite a phenomenon. And I was looking through even Weya sales statistics. As early as 2018, she sold more than the Shanghai Super Mall in terms of overall products. And so I'm just so curious about these individuals. Why have these individuals come from nowhere to be the faces, literally and figuratively, of live stream e-commerce in China? What's so special about these guys?
Because everyone, this question not first time I asked for after live streaming got popular. Everyone asked me why they were so popular, what's going on. Actually, if you go deep research, they are not normal person. They actually running for a business like this very long time. We are running like this a really long time. She got successful, she failed, and she gonna again. And this part of the personality, people love it. Because you are not grow up like you just got successful. You go down, you go up. Because live streaming is really close with the user. It's not like, because I'm doing video, people watching video and then they know who I am. But live streamer, I talk to you right away. So people can feel in personality, they can feel in what she's doing. And Weya and Australia, they're doing something very strict. I just want a really nice product, low discount, give it to you, that's it. And then people really like it, simple and special, everyone thinking about the social media is a trend. It's live streaming this year, maybe something next year. And then they're doing really well to live streaming. Even me, I will follow them and look at them, they're doing really well.
Okay. And the live streaming itself, Pablo, has become more and more elaborate. The sets are becoming much more elaborate, an emphasis on high production values, crossovers between celebrities and the streaming talent. What are some of the trends that you're seeing in live streaming, whether it's live streaming or live streaming e-commerce, that brands should be thinking about as they head into 2021?
I have actually a very balanced opinion about that. I think that on the one hand, you see indeed an increasing level of sophistication, inviting celebrities to be part of it, staging amazing events to enrich the experience and the level of entertainment. But once again, we also have very concrete examples of purely sales-driven live streaming, where a sales associate was presenting novelty products to clients. And that didn't require production costs. That didn't require media investment because it was directly tapping into the brand CRM database, and where the conversion rate and the level of return on investment was absolutely through the roof. So if you look at live streaming as an opportunity to build brand awareness, definitely I think that brands are going to continue to raise the bar. Bigger events, more amazing experience, more and more platforms broadcasting simultaneously, media budget and so on. But I think that at the same time it would be very restrictive to only consider live streaming under that angle, because I'm a firm believer that even for luxury brands, that idea of also in parallel hosting small-scale live streaming, highly targeted, addressing a specific need or topic for a specific segment of your audience is also something that is highly relevant. So I think that it goes back to what are your primary objectives here. And if we go back to Tmall, it's probably the only platform where it's really twofold, because it's both awareness and transactions. If I live stream on Weibo, my first topic, or through Ichibo or whatever, but my first topic is going to be on top of the funnel indicators. If I live stream on WeChat, my main indicators will be bottom of the funnel. And Tmall somehow, because of Tmall, allows you to cover maybe almost the entire journey, and where you come up with a mix of top level and bottom line indicators. And this should really dictate, once again, how much you want to invest and how you want to set up those type of activities, at which level of frequency and with what type of asset to support it.
Right. So what I'm hearing there is I'm hearing a real mix of one to small group, even one-to-one and one-to-many, and being able to play across those different formats is increasingly important. Maggie, in terms of your view, what do you see as some of the trends that are happening in streaming or live streaming or even video content generally? What are some of the things that you're seeing?
It's so trendy. I think it would be more. I think it would be. Actually, we just talk about this. No, I agree with what you say. I think online and offline they will mix together on the future. And what my opinion is, what my perspective will be, live streaming will be more like innovation.
Okay.
I think that would be the trend if the tech can actually reach that. So I think we'll be on the future, so you can see stuff, and actually the live streaming we're talking, and you can actually pick up the product just in the live stream event. I heard people doing this right now. It's really interesting, fascinating.
Okay, that is interesting. That is truly interesting. I suppose we talked a lot about the positive things of live streaming, and I'm just keen to understand what are some of the traps that both brands and agencies, for those that are engaged with marketing in the audience, have to be concerned about or have to be on guard for when they're recruiting this type of talent? What are some of the things to look out for, Pablo?
I feel that in a lot of live streaming operations that are developed by brands, there is still a strong PR element into that. There is still that idea that a successful live stream is going to allow you after that to issue a press release saying that you sold out your bags in an hour. Okay. No matter how many you are actually selling, no matter the level of returns. And there is such a need, because this is what has been driving all the excitement around digital here, for those big numbers and for those success stories that happened overnight like that, and that magical recipe that we found. that one of the big risks is to start to be very short-sighted on how you want to achieve those goals, which can very quickly push you to some extreme. I mean, right now in the warm-up to Singles Day, we're literally witnessing some live streaming where I don't see how brands could even make money from that.
Right.
So maybe your goal was not actually to generate profitability from that. Maybe your goal was to create desirability for your product and to develop a storyline that was saying how much you sold out and how hard it is to get. But I think it's really hard to, no matter what, keep a good balance between what you actually expect for your business here beyond the PR headlines that we all love so much when it happens.
Okay, so the balance on the short term and the longer term, which seems to be a recurring theme in marketing, because the CMO tenure is of course so low and the pressure's on to get results in the door as quickly as possible. What are some of the things that when you look at that you say, okay, how do you balance the sales and the brand building? Have you seen any really good examples out there?
I think that if you have to look at a mix of both, we're going back to Tmall live streaming. Tmall live streaming that are staged on the occasion of Super Brand Day, on the occasion of those big milestones that are naturally going to be massively supported in terms of infrastructure as well. I think that when a brand like Montblanc, the occasion, I don't remember if it was their launch on Tmall or their Super Brand Day, I think it was their launch on Tmall, that had that pop-up store installation in a shopping mall, that ambassador Chen Kun was here, Mr. Bags was here. That was a great mix. That was a great mix of something that visually was on par with what a luxury brand stands for, with a real entertainment dimension with celebrities being there. But at the same time, I was not watching a fashion show about product that I might be able to buy in 6 months from now. I was watching those guys talking about leather bags that I could buy in one click.
Right.
And I think that this is the example of how to keep that balance.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. And so just to, before we head over to Q&A with the audience, we talked a little bit about Singles Day. Any Singles Day predictions from either Maggie or Pablo? What are you looking forward to? What do you think is going to happen?
Please.
I think it would be blow up. Everyone say it would be blow up because the coronavirus. So everyone wants to put the sales on the end, push really hard to the Double 11.
Okay.
That would be the number one thing. So they will have a lot of discount either, and everyone will be shopping a lot.
Yes.
And third, I don't know everyone, but me, in my moment already blowing up. Everyone going traveling, and everyone's shopping, and everyone trying to go in the holiday mode. So I think Double 11 will be a blow up.
Okay. It's going to be big. Pablo?
More sales, how could it be different? But I feel that what is interesting is that when we're doing that exercise of forecasting Singles Day's performance, the whole focus is on GMV and is on GMV and revenue. Once again, I would be interested to see what the trend is going to look like in terms of profitability for such events. But this is not a topic that we talk about, obviously.
Fantastic. And throwing over to our audience now, any questions for our panelists on live streaming, whether it's normal live streaming or video game live streaming or e-commerce live streaming?
Thank you for the great discussion. But my question is not particularly about live streaming, but it's about online digital marketing. It's about online digital marketing. I have a question for Maggie. So the private traffic has become a buzzword. Private traffic has become a buzzword since last year. And the communication with customers have been funneled to a private pool. And as a top KOL, and you must have your own crowd of followers, what's your secret recipe for managing communication and discussions with your followers?
Okay, so that's my little secret. I never talk to people about this though. So I have 5 different groups, and every group is blowing up, and it's still growing. So what I actually doing, I let people talk whatever they want in a group, never judging, zero judging. They talking about husband, I don't know, wherever. Then they're like, okay, cool. And then they will feel really free. And then they start sharing coupon, they're sharing something really girly, and that something cannot survive in the group. And then I tell them like, you cannot do that, but you can figure it away. I treat them like friend and talk to them one by one. And then rest of the time, I let my star KOL, my star fans to manage the group. So they will feel like there's some community. They don't feel like they are following someone. They're not my fans, they're my friends. So they will be really happy in my community. Still in here a really long time.
I think it's very exciting, but at the same time is somehow a little bit of a repackaging than a failed initiative. If we look at the way brands started e-commerce at first, especially if I speak about my industry, which is the luxury industry, Tmall was a taboo topic. When they actually decided to start selling online in China, the condition was to control absolutely every element of the user experience. And they failed. They failed because they didn't have the ability to capture the traffic, no matter the level of awareness. They were not able to establish the same level of trust, even if they were labeled as official websites over the platform that people were using on a daily basis to buy. And they had somehow to accept to do that trade-off of working with a marketplace to address that. The ambition of building private traffic assets for a brand is very legitimate, and I think it makes sense to start building initiative in that way, but I just see that as very baby steps in terms of impact it will have on the revenue short term. But that's probably the way to start to achieve that in mid-term, but there's a very long way to go before international brands can, because it's about more than building the communities. It's about first and foremost being able to legitimately compete with e-commerce leaders that are shaping the expectation of the customers. And so you can have an amazing private traffic as a brand, but if your basic operation, fulfillment, customer service, and various benefits that you're providing are not on par with what Tmall does, good luck with that. So yeah, I think it's interesting. It has a lot of potential. There are definitely elements that needs to be developed around it. But I personally don't see that as the secret weapon over the threat of marketplace that are reducing the profit margin of luxury brands.
Oh, hello. So I have a question. So we know that when the television, lots of people watch TV, we got TV shopping. And now because of the 5G and the mobile phone, people use live streaming for shopping. So if you take a wild guess, in a few years, what could be the next sales channel?
I definitely thinking about say MR shopping. I really want to vote for MR shopping though. So you don't have to go out of the house. Since you wear glasses, everything's on your houses. You can touch them. You don't even have to go out. You can in the room and people can come inside. You can see the vision of that. I spoke with some tech company like a few years ago. So I think if they can compete, would be that. I think would be the trend on the future. I don't know.
It's a tricky question. I'm not sure I have the ambition to have a crystal ball or to have a real expertise on innovation, consulting, and trends. But I think that, as you mentioned, with the 5G and with the Internet of Things, what is going to happen is that you won't have to go to a specific place or a specific platform or a specific device to make a purchase. Eventually, this is what we're looking at. Objects will be increasingly connected, and that possibility of placing an order will be more and more dematerialized. And ultimately, I'm not sure that's really a trend, but this is eventually what I see. What is very interesting is then in terms of technology, whether the e-commerce leaders right now are going to be the one establishing themselves as the proxy to those different touch points, or whether this is going to potentially redistribute the cards because there is going to be a very strong element of hardware that you don't have in the e-commerce landscape right now. Like Alibaba doesn't really have to care about what type of phone you buy. But with the Internet of Things, Alibaba might have to start caring about what type of dressing room you buy or what type of fridge you buy. So that's going to be interesting questions. Where does that lead us? I don't really know.
Great. I think we're actually about out of time. We'll return you the mic if you want to hear.
Brilliant. So, what are they? There is this. I went to Geneva last year, Pablo, and there is this phrase that the Swiss have about time. Time is the. Anyway, we're out of time, and so we're very grateful to have our two guests today. Please give them a round of applause. Maggie and Pablo.